Welcome to another episode of Nass the Pod. We're underway. Today I'm kind of going to be going through my East and West contenders, or teams I think that can potentially make a long run, potentially make a finals push. Some storylines. I'm also going to talk about my Celtics. My Celtics that I've been quiet about all year, and there's a reason behind that. Celtics, it's home team, so that's a little personal. I know I talk a lot about Kyrie, Russ, LeBron, all these Luka, all these KD, all these popular guys in the league, but those are my guys. But like the team is, it's still home team, and they hold a special place in my heart, obviously. So, and watching them make that finals push, obviously they disappointed the fan base, but they did the best they could, and that's a dynasty team in the Warriors that they just got back their MVP and Klay Thompson, and they had the whole Poole and Wiggins factor, so it was definitely cool to see them make that push, especially seeing where Tatum and Brown, since they've come in the league, and seeing them just kind of grow, and watching them grow has just been a pleasure. So I feel like they deserve to be rewarded with that championship. So I'm definitely going to touch upon them later. For right now, I'm just going to take a look at the West. So the Western standings right now, if anyone's been really watching basketball on like a daily basis or keeping up, the West standings have been insane. So starting off at the top, Denver, Memphis, and Sacramento, they've been like 1, 2, 3 the majority of the year. Memphis is still 3.5 games back amidst all the injuries and adversity off the court. Sacramento, they're just 5 games back. They've been, a great story all year. They've been a pleasure to watch. But once you get into nitty and gritty, 4 through 12 is only separated by 4 games. So the 4th seed all the way down to the 12th seed, the Utah Jazz, separated by 4 games only. So you got Phoenix at the 4th spot currently entering today. They're only 11 games back. 5 and 6, you have the Clippers and the Warriors, 11.5, tied for the same record. And then you get to the play-in, 7 through 12, well, 7 through 11, but I'm throwing the Jazz in there just because, they're right there. But you have Minnesota at the 7th, Lakers locked in at the 8th, Pels at the 9th, OKC at the 10th, Mavs at the 11th, and the 12th you have Utah. So it's gonna be a photo finish. I really can't wait to see how that looks like. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I haven't been this excited for a regular season like finish in like so long. Usually by this point in years past, we already know who the playoff matchups are gonna be. Some guys are doing the whole load management, but they can't even afford to do that right now, just because like the West is so competitive that you look at a team like the Mavericks. The Mavericks, I think prior to the Kyrie trade, I think they were the 5th seed, and now they are the 11th. So that just shows you that like the West has just been nothing to play with all year long. I'm gonna obviously get into that, some of my teams there. After that, I'm gonna get into my beloved Celtics, and yeah.
Engulfed by the history, the most successful storied history. Anybody else? I'll throw the locker room
Really wish I could get into all NBA, because that's the one thing that is going to be crazier than the Western Conference finishes. That these all NBA teams, like, I might cry like actually having to like pick these guys, because there's just so many talented guys. And I know I just overstated, but I cannot emphasize enough like how many talented basketball players are in the league right now. And some of that may be due to how it's right now. People have been stating how this current era of basketball, it's the easiest, it's the easiest way to be effective. It's the easiest way to score right now. It's one of those things. But yeah, man, I can't get into all NBA right now. I'm gonna leave that for like a couple days from now. I'm gonna wait till a couple games, just because the numbers are so close. People are still playing. People are still out. So I'll have that locked in. I'll probably drop a little All NBA segment like sometime this week. But let's get into it. So if anyone remembers, I think like a quarter to midway, I said that I would be looking at the Memphis Grizzlies as like the team to look out for because they hadn't had all their guys. Desmond Bane, he had an injury, early on in the season. Trip J had not been back yet. He'd come back. They put the John Morant suspension. You put that aside. He had been dealing with injuries here and there too. Steven Adams. They lost Brandon Clark to an Achilles injury. So they've really been like battle tested as far as, personnel and availability and having guys on the court. So, John Morant, past 2 games, he's come back. They just slaughtered, I think it was Houston. They put up like 151. It was crazy. I still stand on it. I think Memphis, I'm not saying they're the team to beat, but they're the team to look out for just because of the combination of youth. You can't really say they don't have any experience. This is probably their second year in a row with that current group of Brooks, Ja, Trip J, Bane, Adams. This is like their second. Actually, I'm not even sure. Bane is a second year? I don't know. Bane's a second year or third year. I think Bane's a third year. This is their third year together. That current like group: Ja, Brooks, Bane, Trip J, Steven Adams. This is their third year together. And after last year really challenging the Dubs, I definitely know that they took something. They took something with that. So that's the team I'm still looking out for. I don't think the league wants to see a humble John Morant. John made a mistake. He's 23 years old. If anyone remembers what they were doing at 23 years old, I don't think it was definitely the smartest thing. But, as of right now, I don't think I want to see a humble Ja, a motivated Ja with this motivated Memphis team. You saw Dylan Brooks and Draymond Green going at it, taking jabs back and forth. Golden State went to Memphis, ended up getting smacked. And I forget whose podcast. I was listening to Bill Simmons, and he had Logan Murdoch on. And Logan, who used to cover the Warriors early on in his career, he was talking about how during the Draymond Green Warriors era, there have been very few times where there's a player on an opposing team, kind of chatting to the media, talking down on the team, and then that team ends up meeting the Warriors, and the Warriors just get blasted. He was basically saying that there's a very few occurrences that's ever happened, and they got slaughtered. You know what I mean? And Golden State was my team to, take the whole thing. I had Golden State and Boston running it back. I really don't know what to expect. Golden State looks like a title contender one day, and then they look like basically a 7 seed the next day. So I don't really know what to take about it. The road record is very weird. It's very odd, especially for a team that has the amount of experience that they have. It's weird. I think what people aren't really, realizing is that Andrew Wiggins, I don't think they're realizing his value on the court. His value to that team as of right now is it's high as it's ever been. You can see that the team is completely different without him. They can't defend. They can defend the 3-point line. The interior defense is not that great. They can't play on the road. Curry just dropped, I believe it was 50. He dropped 50. I think it was exactly 50. He dropped 50 at crypto against the Clippers, and they still lost. You know what I mean? So very few times you get a Steph Curry 50-point game. And this wasn't just any Steph Curry 50-point game. That was probably one of the more sharpest 50-point games I've ever seen of all players. Steph was on from the beginning of the game to the finish line, and they still couldn't get it done. So definitely some yellow flags there with Golden State. I don't really know what version we're gonna get. This situation with Andrew Wiggins, it's not looking like he's supposed to come back. No one knows what is going on. Obviously, I hope everything's well for him. I hope everything works out. It's tough. Family situations are tough. We've all been through them, and especially for him, I mean, we've all been through them, but not all of us are, professional basketball players with this platform and all these cameras on us and, our business in the media. And someone was making up a story about I'm not even going to state the story because that would just be me spreading misinformation. But I hope that story's not true. We heard Draymond Green come on his podcast and talk about how people are nasty and how they just come up with stories just to, drive narratives, and you don't want to do that. This is just Andrew Wiggins. This is just a guy going through something. He's a human being just like all of us. So I wish him the best. If he can, I hope he comes back. So that's the word on the Dubs. The Dubs, Memphis, the Dallas Mavericks. Maybe it was 3 weeks ago. I stated how Kyrie and Luka, they might be the best backcourt in the league, but they don't have any defenders. And now you've seen they've plummeted. They were the 5th seed prior to the Kyrie trade, and now they're 11th. they're right now they're outside the play-in. So if the season ended today, they'd be outside the play-in. It's kind of sad, just because the talent that Luka and Kyrie are. You want to see the most talented guys in the playoffs. That's the way I view it. You want to see the best players in the league. You want to see them at the next level in the postseason. Situations matter, but in this particular situation, they just don't have any defenders. Like I said, are they going to rely on Reggie Bullock to put on Devin Booker, or it's tough. It's tough out here. So I didn't expect it to be this bad. What people aren't even mentioning is people on the media, they're throwing the Kyrie thing around, and Luka had that soundbite talking about how he's not as happy anymore. He hasn't smiled in a long time. It's more than basketball. And, obviously people are going to be like, oh, the Kyrie effect, the Kyrie effect, the Kyrie effect. But, I mean, listen, Kyrie's been great since he's been there. He's like one of three guys, 50, 40, 90 since the All-Star break. Still, his like, stat-wise, he's been better in Dallas than he was in Brooklyn. If you look at the numbers, if you really dig deep. It hasn't really led to wins, but what I find interesting is I don't really know what identity they have, because obviously you have the Kyrie and Luka dynamic, the two different play styles. But Kyrie, I think they're 3-1 with just Kyrie alone when he's playing, and Luka's sidelined or he's hurt or whatever and he's not available. They're 3-1. With Luka and Kyrie, I believe they have a under 500 record. I think they're like 4-8 or 4-7, something silly like that. I think it's more than just those two. Obviously, like I said, it was going to take time for those two to come together and collaborate. We've seen some good flashes, but they just can't defend. It seems like any team can come in there, and that loss to Charlotte at home was just a reflection of that. So I hope they make the playoffs. I do, because if I have to watch a Western Conference playoffs without Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, that's going to be really disappointing. Those are two of the best players in the league that we have to offer right now, and if they have to sit on the couch and watch these other guys, that's just going to be sad. You know what I mean? That's Dallas. What about Dallas, Memphis, Sacramento? They've been strong all year. 3rd seed. Sacramento is a very interesting team because they have the experience with Mike Brown. Mike Brown, being a part of he was part of that Dynasty Warriors, especially when KD came over as an assistant coach. So he has that championship pedigree that, I wrote about early in the year and said that this is going to make a difference for these young guys, because these young guys have never played any, impactful, important games in their lives, at least at the NBA level, at least most of them. Like De'Aaron Fox has never sniffed the playoffs. Domantas Sabonis doesn't have, an extensive playoff resume. Harrison Barnes, that's probably the most experienced playoff guy you have. And he's probably like your 4th or 5th, best guy. Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, those guys have never really been in meaningful games. Actually, Kevin Huerter, he's played some meaningful games in Atlanta. So, that's a plus. He's been in some big moments. He's had some big games. So, aside from really Kevin Huerter, Mike Brown, Harrison Barnes, you kind of look at the team and you're like, so come postseason, what are we going to expect? I'm a little worried that they're going to be the upset team. I'm just a teeny bit worried, because when you look at the Western Conference standings, right now they're locked in at 3rd. So they're going to be facing a 6th seed. So as of right now, if the playoffs ended, they'd be facing Golden State. Sacramento's not, I know I just talked about Golden State not being known for defense. Sacramento's not particularly known for defense as well. I think it would just be a shootout. Ultimately, I don't even know who'd win. I'd go back and forth. I'm not saying I'd put my money on the Warriors either, but the Warriors do have the experience. They do have that edge. But like I said, Mike Brown, him being there before, that'll help them at some point. But these guys aren't scared. They're not scared of anyone. You heard De'Aaron Fox after that big Clippers game 3 weeks ago. They don't give a flying whatever about who's over there. So they're going to come and play hard, And Sacramento, the home arena, their arena is definitely one of the hardest and loudest places to play in the league. And that's a team that has not hosted a playoff game in X amount of years. So you definitely know that this year, it's the people are going to show out. They're going to show out. The Phoenix Suns, the KD injury. And this is what I mentioned. This is what I mentioned with the Mikal Bridges thing. You mortgage Mikal Bridges off, and you're getting KD, and as great as KD is, he's great. I think he's arguably the best player in the league. I've restated that. I've said that over and over again all year, last year. I think he's arguably the best player in the league. But I can't dismiss the fact that he has not played more than, he hasn't played more than 60 games in 3-4 years. Going back to Golden State. Came to Brooklyn, was still recovering from the Achilles. He had numerous MCL sprains in Brooklyn. So he's a guy that's been fighting availability. He's been so great. He's been great. You look at the win-loss record, his player efficiency rating, his everything. He's been great. When he's on the court, he's been outstanding. But, he just gets these nings and dings, and, it's tough. is what I kind of sympathize with these older guys. These older guys have a lot of miles. They just, their bones are just a little more brittle. Phoenix and Memphis are probably the two teams I look out for. Phoenix, I feel like their offense is just too overwhelming. I know I was questioning their defense as well. I think they do have a couple bodies. They're in a better position than, a team like Dallas that's, a very overwhelming offense with Kyrie and Luka. At least with Booker and KD and CP3, Ayton, you can't forget about him being the X factor in the middle. They do have some guys, Kogi on the perimeter. You have Torrey Craig. He's a guy that can hold his own on the defensive end. Both those guys can shoot. So they'd probably be the team that I'd look out for. And I feel like people do really underrate Kevin Durant's defense. I underestimated too. When I did my Phoenix Suns segment, I didn't even bring up KD as a wing defender at all. And when he was in Brooklyn, he was looking like he wanted to make an all-defensive team. I'm not even gonna lie to you. He was playing like really, really solid defense. Protecting the rim, and he's flexible. You can throw him. You can go small with him. You can go small and big with him. KD's a guy that can play pretty much any position, honestly. And a basketball savant like him, he'll know where to be. He'll know where to go. He'll know what to do. So, Phoenix and Memphis are probably the two teams I look out for in the long run, just because I like their depth. I like Memphis' defense. I like the fact that they can protect the rim. I also can't dismiss that Devin Booker has just been. He's been hooping since the All-Star break. He's been hooping. Paul George, the LA Clippers, we saw, a couple days ago, he had that scary, it looked like a hyperextension, but it ended up being a knee sprain. It ended up looking really, really bad. I was scared that was going to be like an MCL, ACL situation, but there was no ligament damage. So his recovery is supposed to be like 2 to 3 weeks. We'll see how he looks like. He's expected to miss the rest of the season, which is, it's sad, obviously, but the Clippers are going to lock in a playoff spot, so at least I hope. I don't know. I can't even speak too early. I mean, we still have not a lot of games left, but we still have some games left. So hopefully we still see the Clippers in the playoffs. Hopefully we get to see more PG. And they were hooping together. The PG Kawhi Russ lineups were really doing well. I mean, their starting lineup, Russ, Kawhi, PG, Marcus Morris, and Zubac, they were up plus 23 plus minus. 51% from the field, 45% from three. Those are things you want to see. And, since Russ has been a good effect. I mean, they just asked him to play point guard. There's nothing crazy. They're not expecting him to be 2017 Russ. Since he's arrived, PG's been 26-5-6. Kawhi's been 29-7-3 a night. So, that's definitely what we want to see. He's assisting. He has the 4th highest assist percentage on drives. 4th highest assist percentage on drives. So, basically, if you calculate every single NBA player's drives, the number of drives to the rim a game, he has the 4th highest assist percentage. So that's ahead of Jalen Brunson, Chris Paul, Luka, Darius Garland. So that's a pretty good place to be. And he's not shooting bad from the field. I feel like our questions with Russ have always been his shot selection and his turnovers. His shot selection is not terrible. Obviously, you don't want him chucking a lot of threes, but I see that he's getting a little bit more comfortable in his mid-range. Something that you didn't really see as a Laker for numerous reasons. But no, it's good to see him have the ball in his hands, be effective, and kind of just play his game. I feel like he was playing his game as a Laker, but he was limited at times. You know what I mean? He was kind of inside of his head, but at least as a Clipper, as a starter, he knows what he needs to do. And, he's shown flashes. This is not the same Russ, but he's shown flashes, and, they're going to need him in the postseason. They're going to need him. They're going to need a point guard that's going to get easy, opportunities for Zubac, for PG, for Kawhi. So hopefully he's effective. This is how I think the Western Conference is going to play out. I think it's going to be Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, Phoenix, Los Angeles Clippers, the Golden State Warriors. So now I'm at 6. So now obviously we have the play-in, and that gets into Minnesota, the Lakers, Pelicans, OKC, the Mavericks, and Jazz. I think the 2 teams coming out of that, it's going to end up being the Mavericks and the Lakers. I think they're going to get those final 2 spots. Those, I believe, will be the 8 teams to represent the Western Conference. It's tough. I'm probably going to get one of them wrong. I mean, you just saw the Pelicans just beat the brakes off the Clippers last night. But those are the 8 teams I believe that are going to come out of the West. If this ends up being a very emotional segment, please bear with me. I do have emotions too. I have feelings too, especially when you're talking about your beloved home team, your Boston Celtics. It's very comical. It's very comical because I cover the NBA. I don't cover any specific team. I try my best to cover like the landscape of the league, storylines, players, teams, anything that's hot. I try to do my best to cover. Not just even what's hot, even stuff that, they're a little bit under the radar, things that not everyone's talking about. things that you may not see on first take. People scrutinize me for not giving the Celtics enough love, but it's like, bro, it's tough love. It's really tough love. It's home team. I think people have been a little bit too hard on the Celtics this year because when you think about it, their situation has been a lot like Memphis. Memphis, they're the second seed right now. The majority of the year, the Celtics have been the 1 seed, head over heels. The first maybe like 40 games of the year, they were looking like the best team in basketball, period. You know, Tatum was looking like an MVP candidate. Jaylen Brown took another level up. Derek White, Brogdon, great supporting cast. Horford is still redefining Father Time. So, it's been great. And especially in Missoula's first year, they've looked great. But it's a long season. There's going to be ups and downs. Stars are going to go through, shooting struggles. It happens. It happens to the best of us. So, right now, they lost that lead. That was a while ago. They are no longer the 1 seed in the East. They lost it to Milwaukee. But I still think this team is just way too deep. Way too deep. Amidst, Tatum had a real cold March. A real cold March. Real cold March. His scoring numbers were still there, but, he wasn't shooting well in isolation. He was one of the worst, pull-up jump shooters over that stretch in that time. Guys that operate in isolation 50% of the time, he's 17th in points per possession. There's only 18 guys that really isolate on offense 15% of their possessions. He's looked good as of late. They had that impressive win in Sacramento. He looked great. They had another great home win against Indiana. So they've kind of turned the page on, the early to mid-March struggles. Jaylen Brown's been looking great. I think he's 27 a game right now in March. Great shooting numbers. Besides Milwaukee, I think they have the highest two-way ceiling. I still think that Jaylen and Jason, they're the best duo in the league. I still have the Celtics as the team to beat in the East. I know a lot of people are looking at Philly, Milwaukee. As you should, those are top-notch teams in the East. They've been playing at a high level all year. I know the Celtics were the 1 seed. They've kind of dwindled, post All-Star break. Tatum's had kind of a tough shooting month. But, similar to Memphis, they've had a lot of injuries. You've had Rob out, you've had Brogdon out. Jalen's had a couple injuries. Smart's been hurt. You look down the list. Yeah, if you look at the core, if you look at the playoff rotation last year, a lot of those guys have been hurt this year, similar to Memphis, who've been dealing with Triple J being out. What I found. Desmond Bane being out. Apologize for that. I don't know what series you're talking about. Desmond Bane being out. They have the John Moran suspension. He's been out and getting dinged up. Steven Adams being out. So, and even, just like Memphis, they've been able to kind of, be atop the East. They were the 1 seed the majority of the year. The first 45 to 50 games, they were the best team in the East, undisputedly. Tatum was looking like a top 3, like an MVP finalist. He's still in the running. His numbers are still there. He's gonna be up there. He's still gonna be in the running at the end of the day, just because the Celtics are still, right now they're the 2nd seed right now. Actually, I'm sorry, not even the 3rd seed. The 2nd seed. They're only 2 games back of the 1. So, with that being said, Tatum's got to be up there for MVP. But I just think that the Celtics, they're pros. I just think they're the deepest guard wing team in the league. I just think they have so many guys that can operate with the ball, and those same guys can operate off the ball. You know what I mean? You got guys like Derek White, Marcus Smart, Tatum and Jalen have the ball in their hands a lot. You got Brogdon. Oh, and Rob Williams. I didn't even mention that. He's been hurt the majority of the year. But I do think that when they are all right, and the key word is when. Well, not even when. I should say the key word is if. If the Celtics are all there, if they're all right, I still think that they're the team to be in the West. The team to be in the East. I think Missoula's biggest challenge, as a head coach this playoff run, and he's done an outstanding job in his first year. I just feel like there's just something with experience. Experience can only go so far. And obviously, he was behind Will Hardy and, Ime Udoka, and, he was, off to the side. But him having to deal with the experience of an Eric Spoelstra, a Doc Rivers, a Budenholzer, a Nick Nurse. If you look at who else is a prominent head coach in the East? Tom Thibs. He's going to have to outcoach some of these guys. I just don't know if he's ready for it. I've been, not just me, there's been, fans across the league that have been a little bit skeptical of things he's done. He doesn't call timeouts as much. He kind of lets his, the leash is kind of just, he lets the players have the leash, you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like I should cut him some slack because, like I said, it's his first year. So he's learning, as we go. The plan was not for him to be the head coach. He's kind of just throwing the fire. He's been blessed with all this talent, don't get me wrong, in a championship caliber team. But I do think he's going to face some, particular challenges, going against, particular head coaches. So that'd be something I'd look out for. Another thing I look out for is the whole Marcus Smart, Derek White thing is very interesting because Derek White is, since the All-Star break, he's plus 68. Plus 68 since the All-Star break. Marcus Smart, who's starting to turn the corner a little bit, he's kind of been borderline, like just non-playable since the All-Star break. He really has not been the same Marcus Smart. So I just think that's interesting because as we approach the playoffs, if this lingers into the playoffs, him fighting to kind of get back to, and we saw with Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson was hurt and he was kind of just fighting to kind of like get back to his own level. And that can lead to like tough shot selections. That can lead to, tough plays and stuff like that. Marcus Smart, I just feel like he's also kind of, going through the same fight. I feel like he's trying so hard to get back to who he was last year. That defensive player year level Marcus Smart, which is the best Marcus Smart we've seen in his entire career. I do find it interesting that, if there's a game 3 in Philly, Celtics are down 5. Derek White's had the hot hand. Marcus Smart's had a breather. And now we're getting to crunch time. Are we throwing Marcus Smart back out there? Because you got to think about just like egos and stuff. You know what I mean? Marcus Smart is going to want to be out there. And just off of, stature and who he is, you'd be like, yeah, Marcus Smart, go out there. But I mean, the Celtics have been pretty good with Derek White. And I'm not trying to stir anything up, but when you look at the crunch time lineups you have, Jalen is going to be out there. Tatum is going to be out there. Horford is going to be out there. And now you get into the Brogdon, Derek White, Grant Williams, Rob Williams. Oh, Rob will be out there without a doubt. You have to have your elite rim protector. So it gets a little nitty and gritty. Who's going to be the outsider? You got Brogdon, you got Derek White, you got Smart, you got two wings, you got Horford, you have Rob. So who's going to be that? It's a good problem to have, but as we approach the playoffs, we do definitely want to, put a line down and be like, all right, this is it. It's a good problem to have, though. I mean, I don't think you really can go wrong with any of the three, whether it's Brogdon, whether it's Derek White, whether it's Smart. So that'd be something I'd look out for, just because it's something that I've just kind of kept my eye on over the past couple months. Derek White has been hooping. Derek White he's been the Celtics, at times he's been the Celtics' second best player. Whether it's Tatum Brown, Derek White, or Tatum White, or Brown White. There's been some games where Tatum doesn't have it going. Brown may have it going, but, the running mate with Brown has been, Derek White. Derek White's just been a great player. And I gotta shout out Derek White for real. I know I'm already in the midst of a Derek White segment, but when we traded him for, I think it was Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson, I kind of liked him. You know what I mean? 3-and-D guy. I didn't think he was. I was kind of reluctant to admit that, like, yeah, we should, trade him. But I just think it's something that, we're going to have to look out for, especially Missoula ball. But overall, that's going to be the team to beat. That's definitely going to be a team to beat in the East. I know Philly has been looking great. Philly has to prove me wrong. I don't trust Philly yet. On paper, it looks great, but Harden needs to prove me wrong. Embiid needs to prove me wrong. Someone of the supporting cast needs to step up. I don't know if it's going to be D'Anthony Melton or if Tyrese Maxey is going to take that next step, but someone from that team needs to step out for me to put them on the level of Boston. Record-wise in regular season, they've been that, but postseason is a whole different game. We saw what Boston did last year. So someone on Philly needs to show me something this year. They almost lost that series against Toronto last year, against a rookie Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam. So, now they got to show me something. Milwaukee is probably the only team I'd really, really be scared of in the East, just because Giannis is Giannis. Giannis can get 2 games against the Celtics by himself. But when you throw in Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, who's also just like Smart, kind of been fighting to get back to who he's been. Joe Ingles, Jay Crowder, Brook Lopez, like that. It's a lot of experience. A lot of experience. Those are guys who've been in the NBA Finals. Those are guys who play a lot of playoff games. And just overall veteran experience. And then you've got Budenholzer in the back too. So that's a team that really, I wouldn't say strikes fear, but just a team I'd look out for. The rest of the East, I don't think can really hang with Boston or Milwaukee. I'll throw Miami in there because come this time of the year, Jimmy Butler turns into a top 10 player. So that's a team I'd obviously be on the lookout for. And they beat Philly last year. So the Knicks, you got the Knicks and Nets, Atlanta. Toronto's over there in the 9 seed. Chicago's been a very Very surprising story. Their 5-man unit of Caruso, Patrick Beverley, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Vucevic. They've had the best plus minus since the All-Star break. Like that 5-man unit. That 5-man unit had the best plus minus. I think it's just something to look out for. But this is what I was saying with the Lonzo thing. And, shout out Lonzo real quick. I hope we get to see you, not next year, but, the year after. Hopefully you can really, really get back to playing basketball. Lonzo, just like Patrick Beverley, is a high-level two-way guy. He's a guy's going to organize the offense. He's going to play high-level defense. Him and Caruso are, defensive pests. You can ask LeBron about it. He knows. Those two guys next to LaVine and DeRozan, you got a legit team. Now, in terms of the bench, you got Kobe White. I think that the bench is still thin. I don't think they have enough interior defense either to even really hang with those teams. But that's a team I'd look out for. Right now, they're 10th. They're in the play-in, but that's a team. I think that's a team that can beat Toronto, that can beat Atlanta. They can go toe-to-toe to Miami, and they've been hot as of late. And Zach LaVine has been hooping, by the way. Zach LaVine has been really, really playing at a really, really high level over the course of the past, since the All-Star break as well. He's averaging like 32 a night, 50, 40, 90. There's only 2 other guys that have gone 50, 40, 90 since the All-Star break. I believe it's him, Kyrie, and someone else. I forget off the top of my head. But he's been playing a really, really good brand of basketball. So Chicago would be the team I'd look out for in terms of being a dark horse. I was on the NGSC Sports show, and I was talking about how I thought that for Toronto. Just because Toronto has a bunch of these two-way versatile players, and they're just dogs, and Nick Nurse, the championship pedigree behind him. High-seeded team, I would not want to face him. If I was Philly, I would not want to see Toronto right now. Any of the teams, doesn't even matter if it was even Boston. I would not want to see Toronto right now, just because they're gonna make you work. They're gonna make you work, and they might fatigue you and make you tired for that next series against Milwaukee. If Boston goes against Toronto, Toronto might make them work for 6 games, and then now they gotta go into war with Milwaukee, and that might drain them. You know what I mean? It's not even about if they can beat them, but they might drain them fatigue-wise. So Chicago and Toronto, those are 2 teams I'd probably look out for in the bottom of the East. 2 days from now, in a couple of days, not 2 days from now, in a couple of days, I'm probably going to start getting into my All-NBA stuff. I have it laid out. I have a bunch of stickies, with currently who I think is where, but, things change. Now, Dame Dollar, he's about to be shut down for the year. So does that impact his All-NBA? I don't know. Steph Curry just came back from his injury, but he's been hooping. Does that impact his All-NBA? I don't know how much I'm going to take into account games played, because this year's been an outlier. This has been such a weird year. So I don't really know what I'm going to do. But in a couple of days from now this week, I'm really going to get into the nitty and gritty of it. I'm really going to get into the numbers, games played, stuff like that. It's crazy. A guy like Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's been 33, 32 points a night since forever. The past even prior to the All-Star game, he was hooping. So does he land an All-NBA spot? Or should I use the games played to reward a guy like Lauri Markkanen? Jimmy Butler's been really, really good as of late. Kevin Durant's missed some time. Do I take him off All-NBA completely? Hint, I'm not going to. But, those are things I just got to think about coming into the last, closing weeks of the season. So, yeah, All-NBA episode definitely coming up very soon. I just want to give everyone a quick little update on my thoughts about, the Eastern and Western Conference outlook. So be on the lookout for that. Shout out to my man Ace. I don't know if any of you guys peeped. I went on his Twitch stream. So that was really cool. Shout out my man Ace. Ace the mentor, Ace the god. So, yeah, continue. Stay on the lookout for new episode. Subscribe. Please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. This is actually my first time. I think it's my first time this year saying subscribe. But man, this is good content, so I shouldn't even have to really say subscribe. But yeah, man, subscribe. Follow Nass the Pod on Instagram. Nass the Pod. 2 S's, not 1 S. Nass Nass once again. Nass the Pod. Follow it on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. NassK2. It's right there in the bio too. So be on the lookout for that. More content. It's gonna be an exciting NBA finish for all my NBA lovers out there, man. We locked in. Should be a good finish. So I can't wait. I'll see y'all later.